Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Good morning, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. This is Everything Cooperative. And we just come around to talk to you every Thursday morning about the benefits of the cooperative business model. And today we're delighted that Marilyn Scholl is a retired manager of a consulting cooperative. Good morning, Marilyn.
Good morning, Vernon. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, too. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. You have a wonderful, wonderful history in this cooperative world. How did you get started in it?
Well, it has been a long time. It's been about 40 years. I first started when I moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1975 or so. And I was looking around to try to get to know the community. And I rode the bus from one end of town to the other. And I went past a sign that said food co-op. And I thought, well, what in the world is that? And I got off the bus and I went in. And right next door, there was another food co-op. They were very different stores. One was a natural food store, and the other was a traditional grocery store. But they were right in the same building, and they had different histories and different membership bases. But it was very intriguing to me, and I ended up actually moving into that neighborhood in part because the co-ops were there, and saw what a difference that having co-ops in a neighborhood could make.
Wow. So you're just curious.
That's how it started.
Okay. See, I didn't find out about co-ops until I started managing housing co-ops, and then I've fallen in love with this model. And
yeah, it's an amazing thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Throughout my formal education with a couple of master's degrees, nobody taught me food co-ops, period. So I did not get that in any formal education.
Yeah, it's funny, Vernon. You know, I think that as human beings, we know how to cooperate with each other. We learn it in kindergarten, but the formal business model unfortunately, it's a well-kept secret, but let's see what we can do to change that.
Well, that's the reason the National Co-op Bank is sponsoring this program, and it was an idea that I had with the National Cooperative Housing Association, is that we need to promote co-ops because people just don't know about it.
Right. Yeah, well, thanks so much to you for that vision and for Chuck Snyder and the Co-op Bank for sponsoring it. It's what a great thing. Yeah,
and we've started an advisory committee. We got about 8-9 people on it, and just a lot of enthusiasm. It's nice to watch things grow from an idea to generate and germinate, and people come in.
Well, that's what cooperatives are all about, right? People who have an idea, and they get together, and they figure out, well, how can we make this work? How can we solve this problem that we share, rather than everybody trying to figure it out on their own, but people working together to solve a problem, and that's how the first co-op that I worked in at the Gordon Park Food Co-op there in Milwaukee that I was telling you about, you know, it was a poor neighborhood, a racially mixed neighborhood. There was a grocery store there, but it was 1970s, and all the food stores were moving out to the suburbs, and nobody was really serving the middle of the city and the neighborhoods within the city. And there was a store there that was owned by a couple of brothers. They happened to be Hungarian. They were in their 80s, and they wanted to sell their business, but they couldn't find anybody to sell it to because, you know, there was no parking, and it was a small neighborhood. People didn't have a lot of money. And so they finally decided, after years of trying to sell it, they were just going to close it down. Well, the neighbors said, well, what are we going to do without our grocery store? So they just they pooled, and because the other co-op there, the natural foods co-op that was there, they had the model. They knew that there was something called a co-op that they could figure out, and so they pooled their money and bought out the inventory from the brothers and started operating it as a co-op. And I came along about 3 or 4 years later and found it equally intriguing, started working there in 1978.
Doing what?
Well, I started out as a cheese cutter.
Cheese cutter.
We had a lot of people who contributed their labor to the store, just worked for a discount on our food back then. We didn't know that the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act would frown on that. At the time, we just thought it was a good idea. And then eventually I got a job on the staff, and at that point, everybody did everything. Some days I would stock the milk cooler. Other days I would serve customers at the meat counter. Sometimes I'd cashier. I'd mop the floor. Whatever needed to be done, whoever was on duty would do it. Eventually, I did become the manager of that store, and then later moved to Austin, Texas, and was the manager of the Wheatsville Food Co-op there. So I started out in management of the food co-ops.
Well, you started out cutting cheese.
Yes, indeed. It was Wisconsin, too, don't forget.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, they make a lot of cheese up there.
Indeed.
Okay, so you work all kinds of different jobs doing everything. But what it was interesting, you said you started out where people would just donate their labor.
Yeah, there were a few people who were paid staff, but most of the work got done by members volunteering their labor. Yeah, that's how we did it back then. Unfortunately, we later found out that that wasn't acceptable in the eyes of the Fair Labor Standards Act, federal government, Internal Revenue Service. We got ourselves into a little bit of trouble, but that like a lot of things we did in the food co-op back then, we were learning as we went, and that was we didn't know how to operate grocery stores, but we knew that we wanted to do something to meet the needs of the people in our community and something a little different. And so we just had to learn as we went, and it was awfully fun. We had everybody in the community. I felt like we pitched in, and if we had a lot of elderly customers in that neighborhood, and if somebody hadn't come in by noon, we'd say, "Hey, has anybody seen Rosie?" And maybe we'd walk over to her house or give her a call, make sure everything was okay. So it was really a community center as well as a place to buy food.
Real community.
Indeed.
And you call it a community center. Okay. A lot of times the schools play that role in communities.
Yeah, there was we were on the main drag there. Again, it was unfortunate we didn't have a parking lot, but we were on the main drag through the neighborhood, and so a lot of people would stop by. And when I left the co-op, I actually had a bench built outside for my going away present, so that people would have a place to sit as they would drink their coffee and meet their neighbors there at the co-op.
Okay, the other thing that struck out to me out of everything you said was awfully fun. It was great fun.
Yes, it was fun. It's after 40 years, I would say, if it hasn't been fun along the way, why spend that much time? It's also hard work and sometimes exasperating. People don't always agree, and you got to figure out a way to find a path that works for the majority of the people, as many people as you can serve. But so it can be exacerbating, but it's also just been really fun to have so much opportunity to learn and meet so many wonderful people, and to just feel like you're making a little bit of a difference.
But Marilyn, what made it fun?
Well, I think the two things, Vernon. I think it's the people. Cooperators are, I think they're interested in other people, and they're interested in the way things work in the world, and they're not just satisfied with the status quo, but want to see how can we make things better, and so that's fun. And then I think the other thing that makes it fun is learning. If you wake up every day and learn something new that day, it's been a good day, right? You've had a chance to explore a new idea, and that you never lose that as you age. There's other things you lose, but your ability to learn and the joy of learning stays with you.
Yeah, but I've been telling people the old cowboy said, if I die with my boots on, it's happy. If I die in a classroom, I'm happy. Now, the classroom may be out in the field looking at the way butterflies fly, or in a food co-op talking to people, or a housing co-op, or in a real school in a classroom. Wherever knowledge is being transferred is what I really like. So, yeah, I got it.
I like that spirit, Vernon. I'm sorry we've never met, but I'm sure looking forward to getting to meet you someday soon.
Well, we're going to meet in May at the Hall of Fame dinner.
I have seen you there before, but unfortunately, we've just never had a chance to meet each other directly. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
So what's the date on that?
May 2nd.
Okay, so May 2nd, Marilyn Scholl is being inducted into the Co-op Hall of Fame, and I'll be there to break bread and drink a glass of wine with her and celebrate that with 3 other people who are co-op heroes. This is the biggest honor in the co-op world. And so it sounds like you deserve it, Marilyn. I was on the selection committee.
Oh, thank you so much.
And that we had maybe 12. I can't remember. It was a larger pool than normal. I've done it 5 different years. Larger pool than normal. And everybody was great. It was a really tough decision. So you came up to the top. You rose to the top of the pile. So congratulations.
Well, my goodness, thank you so much. And what amazing people, also Rudy Hanley and Paul Bradley and Rosemary Mahoney. I mean, what an amazing group of cooperators. They're all so inspirational. I'm so honored and humbled to be included in that class. And then the folks who've been in the past, you talk about people like Pete Creer or Rod Milsistune, Judy Ziewatz, Ann Hoyt. You've just got so many amazing cooperators over the years. I could keep going forever. Shirley Sherrod. I mean, Jessica and Gordon Nemhart. It's just been amazing. David Thompson, Walden Swanson, Kate. I mean, what an amazing Benjamin Franklin, for crying out loud.
Well,
Can't believe what an honor.
The 8 people you named, 6 have been on the program. Which is really, really interesting that we've been doing this now 4.5 years. And we were only going to do it for a month to celebrate Co-op month of October. And I loved it so much, and Chuck Snyder, and so did the people that were on, that it became just sort of a natural thing to do. Wow,
that's a great story. I didn't know how it had started like that.
It started out of, I was the president of the National Association of Housing Co-ops, and I was on a development preservation committee, and we kept trying to get developers to create housing co-ops. And I don't know if you know Roger Wilcock, who passed last year at 97.
Oh, gosh, no, I'm sorry, I don't.
Roger had created a lot of housing co-ops, and Herb Fisher, a lawyer, he's 80-something, and they kept saying if you get the developers to build them, then people will buy them. And I listened to that maybe 4 or 5 years before I got it. They don't know about them. So if you get people to ask for co-ops, if there's a demand for them, then the developers will build them. But they're not going to build them without the demand. So that's what started sort of like we've got to really promote. And so I'm trying to get more cooperators to promote co-ops too. So whatever you can do to promote co-ops. I find that we do it to each other. Internally, we celebrate. But getting that message out to the world. Okay. That's my... So I figured out 10 years ago what I want to be when I grow up, Marilyn. That's a promoter and developer of co-ops.
Well, you're doing a good job.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being on. And we've got to take our first break.
Okay.
And I want to get back into your world and what you've done and in terms of creating a consulting firm and board leadership and so forth. So we'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial.
Washington, D.C.'s News Talk, 1450 AM WOF and 95.9 FM.
Information is power. Well, not really. Information is the access to power. You've got to put some action to it in order to get the power out of it. And the National Co-op Bank is sponsoring this program so you can get the information to start a cooperative or to find one. There are several food co-ops here in this area. And we have Marilyn. You pronounce your name Scholl?
It's Scholl.
Scholl. Okay, who's a retired manager of CDS Consulting Co-op, and she knows everything about food co-ops. That's what it says on your thing, you know?
Well, I've been around a long time. Is that so? I know a lot. I don't know about everything. But
Okay, so what we left off with, you moved to Austin, Texas, and you became a manager there. So how did your world evolve from there?
Yeah, that was a good experience in Austin, and Wheatsville's a great co-op, and I had a good time managing there. But there was something about I'm a Midwesterner. I grew up in Indiana, and being in Texas just was so different culturally, and that after 3 or 4 years there, I decided I wanted to come back to Wisconsin. So I did, and ended up getting a job at the University of Wisconsin Center for Cooperatives. Ann Hoyt hired me to work with her to create a training program for co-op managers, and we called that program the Cooperative Management Institute, or CMI, and promoted that. There were a lot of faculty members from different parts of the University of Wisconsin campus who were going to be teaching in the program, but they were looking for someone who had on-the-ground experience, who knew what it was like to manage a co-op, and to be able to make sure that the coursework was relevant to people who were not just academic or theoretic, but very practical experience for co-op managers. And so that was part of my responsibility to work with the faculty. We wrote some case studies and just helped organize the classes there to support I mentioned before that there were so many things that we just tried to figure out on our own. We didn't always know what we were doing. And this course was an opportunity to raise the level of management capacity in food co-ops. And so it was a really great opportunity to meet a lot of folks and to elevate knowledge. In that case, knowledge was power, and to see people being able to come in with a lot of ideas and help frame those up. And they all had to work on a project. They'd come back 6 months later having completed a project, and the class got to hear what their project was and kick around ideas, and everyone just became better managers as a result of it, and our food co-ops became stronger. It was a very exciting time.
Now, so these co-op managers were all in the food co-op world?
It was designed to be any kind of consumer co-op, but in reality, it turned out that it was almost entirely food co-op managers. We had a few other people who came in, but the food co-ops, I think, were so hungry for the information and the knowledge, and we were just able to attract the food co-op people in. So it was designed more broadly. We didn't specialize in groceries. We specialized in understanding finance, marketing, human resources, the cooperative difference, and even brought in at that point we were helping people learn to use technology. We had some of the classes in the computer lab. This was before it was common to have a computer on your desk.
It seems like, the computer world, technology world has changed so much in 40 years, 30 years, 20 years even.
Yes.
So, it's different to figure out. It's strange how much change has happened. Okay, I want to go back to you elevated knowledge, you worked on projects, kicked around ideas. Oh, I know what it is. Just for everybody out there, there are 4 basic types of co-ops, and you can help me with this, Marilyn, if I don't get it right or something. It's the one is if it's owned by the employees. Well, the difference makes who owns and controls the business. If it's owned and controlled by the employees, it's called a worker cooperative, and therefore you can have any type of business that could be owned and controlled by the employees. If it's owned and controlled by the people that uses the products and services, the customers, then it's called a consumer cooperative, and food co-ops are one that is that, and then 2 would be credit unions or housing co-ops. Those are 3.
Yeah, electric co-ops, child care, different kinds of services that people use that are cooperatively organized.
Go, girl, go. And a food co-op could be a worker-owned co-op.
Could be, and there's a couple that are both consumer
Hybrids.
and worker hybrids.
Right. I had a guy on a program from Seattle that they did that.
Sure enough.
And I think he said 60% is owned by the consumer and 40% by the employees. Some combination. So those are two big ones. And then you have if people want to buy things together, purchasing co-ops. And that a lot of farmers would do this. They'll come together and they'll buy what they need. Mainly to get a better product at a lower price. And if the managers of these co-ops then get the knowledge and they work with the vendors to create contracts and stuff.
Yeah, I understand that they get a lot of efficiencies in the purchasing co-op, and a lot of the small businesses have organized into purchasing co-ops to be able to remain as a small family-owned business, whether it's a hardware store or
Ace
electronics
hardware.
or any kind of products that they might want to purchase together in order to leverage their purchasing power.
Artists are beginning to do that, whether they drawing, painting, or woodwork, or jewelry, or musicians are beginning to form co-ops purchasing. So musicians had a group here that was looking at buying a rental housing together, so they'd have housing, which I find interesting. So that they also, the farmers will buy warehouse space or cooler space together. And I had stories where during the 60s when they were the farmers, black farmers in the South were going out and getting to vote, and then the folks that owned the gas stores wouldn't sell them gas, so they formed a co-op and bought a truck and went across state lines and bought their gas. Good
for them.
Yeah, so it's sort of like whatever the need is in the community, people come together, figure out what they need, and they pool their resources, and then therefore they can get it done. So that's the purchasing co-ops. And then on the other end of the businesses is the marketing co-ops. And again, farmers have been using that a lot in Cabot cheese and Land O'Lakes and Ocean Spray. Ocean Spray?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the cranberries.
Cranberries sauce. Okay. That's what I had in my head was cranberries, and Ocean Spray didn't sound right. All right. So they come together and they can get new markets, the markets that they couldn't get on their own. And of course, they get the efficiencies in the staff that can negotiate contracts with the people they will sell to. So again, they get the efficiencies. I'm glad you put that word in my vocabulary today to describe that. So those are the basic four, and you can have all kinds of different hybrids, combinations of, and so forth of co-ops. It just depends on what the people need in a community.
Yeah, our co-op, CDS Consulting Co-op, is a little bit of a hybrid. We call it a shared services co-op. And in our co-op, all of our consultants, all of our clients are co-ops of different types, and all of our consultants work to help those co-ops be stronger, both as businesses and associations. And our consulting co-op provides services to those consultants so that they can focus their time on serving the clients. So we do promotions, website development, we do administration, invoicing, billing, collection, that sort of thing. And then we all work together, collaborate, share stories, help each other out with a client. If two or more of us are working with a client on something, we can share stories. Or if we've had an experience that can help another consultant be successful, then that kind of collaboration means that people are all independent contractors. They own their own consulting business, but we pool the resources, so it's like both being owning your own business, but not having to do that alone with other people. And there are people in other industries that have been very interested in our model as a shared services co-op. We had one group contact us. They were a group of trail guides. And they were
trail guides.
Trail guides, yeah. They help people organize trips, and they thought that they were all independent and in different parts of the. This was out in Washington State, in different parts of the state, but they thought they would benefit from sharing resources, and so they were interested in our model. we had a group of web and tech designers who were interested in using our model, a group of artists who wanted to share space and share promotion and marketing, and so they were looking at a shared services model. So it's small sector of the co-op, but I think it's an emerging one and one that has the potential to support people who are operating in independent businesses to help leverage some of their business expenses and pool those. So, if you have a small business and you have to do all your own accounting, all your own marketing, and all your own HR work, then it's hard to have time to run your business if you're just a one or two person shop. But if you pool that, share it with other people who are in a similar kind of business, that can, again, bring a lot of efficiencies and a lot of benefits of collaboration and improve your service. So that's how we see it at CDS Consulting Co-op and why we decided to form as a shared services co-op.
Well, I want to come back. We've got to take our second break, but I'd like to come back and get after the break. So some of the things that you've learned in doing that could be shared with other cooperators that may be listening on. What are some of the things, lessons learned that as you've done this consulting work? Okay,
sure. Sounds like fun.
Okay. Let's have fun. We'll be right back. Please don't touch the dial. Welcome back, everybody. As we said earlier, the National Co-op Bank sponsors this program. NCB's mission is to support and be an advocate for America's cooperatives and their members, especially in low-income communities, by providing innovative financial and related services. And they really do a great job of providing these financial services. And I saw in your bio that NCB supported you all. How did they do that?
Well, it's been many times over the years, but back in the early days, we were trying to figure out how to help co-ops strengthen their business practices. And we thought that when Walden Swanson was really the leader of this effort, he's also in the Hall of Fame. You've probably talked to him on your show. Mm-hmm. Walden had the idea that if we could create a database where we would be able to have co-ops share their financial information in a safe and confidential way, so it would be couldn't get out to the outside public, but that we could establish benchmarks. And once we could establish benchmarks, then we could find out who was the best performer and how were they getting that good number in margin or sales or labor efficiency, and explore what a best practice is, and then share that best practice. And so it was originally called COCOFIST. Common stood for COCOFIST, Common Cooperative Financial Statements. And the first thing we had to do was agree on what went in what category, what's called a dairy product, what's called what's going to go in prepared foods, what's going to be our different departments, and then how are we going to code our expenses? Where's the member newsletter? Is that going to be promotion or education? Where's the board expense? And make sure that all of the categories were lined up so we were comparing apples to apples.
So your chart of accounts, you had to make sure that everybody used the same chart of accounts.
And that took us a while to get everybody to agree on that. But once we did
5 years or what? He said,
what's that?
Was that 5 years to get that straight?
Not quite. It was about 18 months process. A lot of people participating and coming in with different ideas, and then we went to the bank and talked to folks there to ask them to support that effort. Many of the co-ops, of course, were borrowers from the bank, so it was a synergistic agreement where we could show the bank that, hey, we think that if we implement this program, co-ops will be stronger, they'll be better borrowers, they'll be more ready to explore expansion projects and want to use the bank's services. And so the bank saw the wisdom in that and supported that project. And there have been other times that we've gone back to the bank with other ideas I forget what year it was, but we were starting to notice a new wave of food co-op development. More communities that didn't have a co-op wanted one, and they were starting to call and say, well, how do we get a co-op started? And we didn't really have any strong organized systems to support them, but there was a manual that we could point them to, but there really wasn't a support network. And so we, again, went to the Co-op Bank and asked Chuck Snyder if he would help us. And again, saying if we can get more co-ops started, they're going to need financial services, and so it could be a win-win. And Chuck saw the wisdom in that and has been supporting the Food Co-op Initiative. I'm on the board of directors of the Food Co-op Initiative and have been for about 10 years. And the National Co-op Bank has supported us that entire time. We have support from other places, too, of course, but the bank has been a very strong supporter, and we're so grateful.
So the Food Cooperative Initiative is to get information to help start food cooperatives? To
help start brand new co-ops, yes, that is correct. There have been about 120 new co-ops that have started in the last 10 years, and they don't all make it, but we've got a pretty high success rate, a little over 70%, which is better than most small business startups. And so there's nearly 100 new co-ops that are that have remained open for 5 years or more, and there's another 100 or 120 some communities across the country that are trying to organize a food co-op in their communities. And so a Food Co-op Initiative is set up to help them in that effort.
Well, there's a group of young people here that's trying to start one in Ward 8, which is a food desert area in district.
Yeah, it's a tough business. The grocery business is really one that's based on volume, and so small stores have a hard time getting the same kind of volume and therefore offering the same kind of prices that huge national chains, and of course they also bargain with the suppliers and try to drive down the cost. So the farmers aren't making any money. The only people who are making money are the people who own the huge companies. But it's such an important need. People need food, and they need access to good quality food. And so we don't have all the answers, but we're certainly trying to figure out how to support communities, especially those in food deserts. But it is I can't tell a lie here. It's very challenging, and we don't have a lot of success stories in the food desert area. We have more success in the natural foods where the customers are a little more affluent. There's more. We have had a little more success there, but we just we're keeping working on it. And we've got a study project going on right now with Food Co-op Initiative, funded in part by Capital Impacts, to try to figure out how we can bring this model to more people and help them get access to good quality food. So we're working on it.
Well, Terry Simonette from Capital Impact was on this program, and Carr, I'm just lost his first name. Ellis Carr has also been on. So they do a lot of great work. They've done wonderful work in Detroit, and I think they did the work in Jackson, Mississippi with the Renaissance Center and a food co-op there.
Renaissance is in Greensboro, North Carolina,
okay.
And Jackson, Mississippi is also a place where I don't know what Capital Impacts did there, but I know that they had a big event called Jackson Rising, where they were really looking at all the different ways that people could take control of their economic circumstances by working together. And that's, of course, the idea of cooperatives, is to support people by sharing their resources and creating something of value for them.
That's why I love co-ops. Oh, I need some help from you. I am going to be giving a presentation to the Potomac Association of Housing Co-ops in Virginia Beach on Friday the 27th of this month, and it's a financial clinic. And what you just talked about is what I've had in my head, and I've talked to them about this for the last 10 years. With what I have found out in housing co-ops is that the people are very skeptical of giving out their financial statements. They really hold on to financial statements as if it's gold, and they don't want anybody to know about it. And I don't know if because things are really great or really bad or whatever it is that they don't want to know. So in your consumer cooperative financial statements, or the Common
Cooperative, yeah. They're not using that name anymore. It was too complicated. Now it's just called CoMetrics.
Oh, and now it's called CoMetrics.
CoMetrics, yeah.
They even changed it, lowered it again. Okay.
Yeah, made it easier to say.
All right, I have talked to them about trying to do this in housing co-ops.
Yes.
I have found that their money is expensive, but I found two things. One is I found it expensive when I've talked to them about doing it, and the second one is trying to get people to overcome their hurdle of giving up the finances so that we could look at, and that's what I had in mind, best practices. What do the numbers tell you? What's the story that the numbers tell you? So I'm having a clinic, and I've got two of the co-ops that give me their financials, and I'm putting with a third one, and we'll see what the numbers tell us there. But that's my ultimate goal, is to do some of the things that you all have done with food co-ops, what I've heard you done, but get that done in the housing world.
Yeah, I think if you have a couple of examples and can show people how much value they can gain from it, I think we tend to hold on to something until we find out that it will become more valuable if we share it. It's just like a smile. You give a smile, you're going to get a smile back. You're going to get multitude times what you give out. And so the benefits are there, but people don't always see it at first. So you have to, I think, sometimes just show them the very practical how it can benefit them.
Fantastic. Now, do you all have anything in writing about the practical benefits? And we're getting to some of the lessons learned of the practical benefits of sharing their financial statements.
I am trying to think if there are or not. I'd have to we have a very large library of resources, a free library available online at our website, cdsconsulting.coop. And then to get to the library, you just / library. And so I would have to look to see. I bet there is, but it's not popping to the top of my head.
Okay. I'm on your webpage. I see service lists, our consultants, clients in case. Where would I find library?
Resources. Yep.
Resources.
And then the last listing under resources is library.
Oh, I see down the page. I was looking across. Start a co-op, cooperative governance, participation, improve operations, develop your talent, expand and grow. Okay, articles, links, toolboxes, and library.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah, that's why I said it all, because it's a great source. cdsconsulting.coop. And your picture shows up.
Yes, it's there right now. My co-op's helping me celebrate the Hall of Fame induction. Aren't they a great group of people?
Yes. Okay, so what are some other lessons you learned? Finances are important.
There are a few things that I jotted down I thought might be interesting. I think one thing is the importance in a co-op of balancing success as a business and balancing success as an association of people. If you're a strong business but don't take care to involve the people, don't be a strong association, people don't know that you're a co-op or why it matters that you're a co-op, you can be successful in the short run. But in the long run, you really need both to be strong. And the opposite is true, too. If you're strong as a co-op but your business practices aren't up to snuff, you're not going to survive very long. So to be successful as a cooperative, you really have to balance both aspects of the business. In my mind, it's more complicated than running another kind of business because you do have to create that balance and you have to achieve success and invest resources in both the business and the association. But that's how you can be successful. And another thing I jotted down.
Before you move on to the next one, I get that it's more complicated, and I get that it's hard work. And I've had people from Equal Exchange on. Rodney North told me that when he was the chair of the board, in the morning he would be in the meeting with the chief operating officer, and the chief operating officer would be telling him what to do. In the evening, in a board meeting, he's the chair and the chief operating officer is there, and he would be telling him what to do. Uh-huh. And the roles would switch. And he said, you have to learn how to do that and respect each other. And so it's harder because now not only did he have to do his job, but he also had to be into governance. So it gets harder, it's more complicated. But the rewards are so awesome when you say that 90% of co-ops are still in existence after 5 years. And you just said for food co-ops, 70% are still in existence after 5 years, where if it's a traditional business, it's only 5 to 10% are in existence after 5 years. It's just
That's a big difference.
It's a huge difference, and I think it's because of the training and learning how to work together.
Part of it is that, for sure, and then part of it is the participation. It's just important that people are participating, and you know, the co-op principles talk about different kinds of participation, particularly around voting, but it's more than voting. It's the conversation. It's people thinking and participating in how can we make this better? How can we communicate our needs better to our co-op, and how can the co-op listen and be sure that it's taking into account a lot of different people's needs. So the participation, and then the participation goes out, that when people are satisfied, they have their needs met, then they're going to go tell other people, and it's going to help spread the word about that co-op or about other co-ops. So really
we have
involving people in the participation really makes a difference.
We have to take our final break, and we'll come back and get your second reason, the second lesson learned. But we'll be right back.
Washington, D.C.'s News Talk, 1450 AM WOS and 95.9 FM.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oaks. Your program is Everything Cooperative. We have Marilyn Scholl on the line with us this morning. Marilyn, you were getting ready to tell us the second lesson learned.
Yeah, I think focusing on member needs. It's easy in business to get this. There's so many things that you have to think about and work on. There's the competitors and other people who are offering services. But if a co-op and its management really stays focused on meeting its members' needs and understanding those needs and making sure that things are organized for the benefit of the members so they can have their needs met, then you've created a purpose that will sustain the business. If members' needs change, then the co-op needs to change. So maintaining that focus, not on what we're doing today, but what is it that members need? And as those needs are likely to change, particularly if you're meeting their needs now, new needs might emerge. So that ongoing focus on what members need is really critical, probably to any business, but especially in a co-op.
How do you do that?
Oh, it's hard. It's certainly hard, particularly in a large co-op, in a consumer co-op where you might have 10, 20,000 members, or even if you have 3,000 or 4,000 members. It's hard to understand what everybody is asking for and looking for, and you have to build your skills at reading the data because you're not going to be able to hear each person, and sometimes the people you do hear from may not be representative of the members as a whole. You have to remember that. Your job is to focus on all the members, not just the loud or the vocal ones, and that's what leadership and governance is about. And that's the next thing on my list about what I think is a lesson learned is the importance of leadership and governance, and that it doesn't just happen. It takes education, it takes strategy, it takes teamwork. And so one of the ways that we've contributed through our consulting co-op is to really focus on supporting boards of directors and helping them understand what their role is and what their role is not, how to provide strategic leadership without interfering with management, how to work together as an effective team, how to make decisions together, and how to connect with the members. And it's not an easy job. There's no silver bullet, but part of it is gathering data, doing customer surveys, member surveys, focus groups, that kind of thing. Other is reading into the data that you do have. Of course, are your sales growing? Is your membership count growing? What's your basket size? If people are using the co-op, that's an indication. It's not a proof, but it's an indication of what people want. And then just continuing to create opportunities for people to communicate with you. So making sure that there's a space on the website, there's a space in the store, that there's people have access to the board members' email addresses, or they know how to get in touch with them. If they want to come to a meeting, they know how to do that. Annual meetings that are engaging and involve listening to people, not just talking at people, but creating ways to listen to people. So it's not one thing, it's a lot of things.
Did you encourage board meetings would be open to members?
Yeah, I think that they should be open to members. I think it's also important that the board has time to do their work, and so it's important not to confuse a board meeting with a member meeting. A board meeting is not a time devoted to listening to members, but they certainly should be open, and members should come, and if they have something to say, listen to them. But the board has its own work and its own agenda to do. So welcoming them, but creating additional opportunities where it is the time to listen to members, whether it's coffees with the board or focus groups, the annual meeting, multiple other opportunities where it doesn't conflict with the board's own work.
Let me tell you something I've learned to see what you think about this.
Okay.
In property management, I found that in order to be successful, you need good governance first, and then you need good management. Because the governance sets the policies and the rules, and then they hire management, and then they ought to be the ones that's evaluating management, but not micromanaging. Mm-hmm. Good governance and good management. And the good part of it is that there's integrity and knowledge, that they have to follow the rules, whatever the rules are, or change the rules. And in property management, you can't give your best friend new carpet and nobody else or whatever else people do when they have power. But you have to have integrity, and then you have to have knowledge. And I found that that's the order, too, because I've got a 16 senior co-op that they don't have a lot of knowledge in terms of, formal knowledge or governance. They have a lot of common sense, mother wit, what we call. And then they can hire the auditor, the manager, the account, lawyer to help with the knowledge part and direct them. And they hold you accountable. They don't have any problems holding you accountable.
That's good.
It is great. It is great. So for what I have found, is good governance first, then good management, and under that is having integrity first and then knowledge. What do you think about that?
I think that's great. I'm really intrigued by your. I see it as a little grid, and I like it. I think the important thing about governance first is that a good board can ensure that there's good management.
Right.
But a good manager has a harder time because a manager doesn't decide who's on the board. A manager can make sure the board has resources. A manager can make sure that the board has access to training opportunities and knowledge and information and support their work with administrative support. And the manager certainly can help with a good board, but they can't control it the other way. So I think you're right. Good governance is critical first. And I think integrity is, I think you hit the nail on the head, Vernon. It is such an important, and it includes a lot of things like honesty and fairness, following the co-op principles, having value. And I think that goes such a long way. Knowledge without integrity, would be a little scary, but knowledge, integrity followed up by knowledge. And then I would probably add to that teamwork because the board, it isn't just an individuals. It's a group, and the group has to work well together. So I might tag that one on.
I like it.
And see where we might be able to go with integrity, knowledge, and teamwork.
I like it. Thank you. Well, that's what I'm going to share from here on out. I like it.
Well, I'm going to take your first governance, then management, integrity, then knowledge. I like that a lot, too, so thank you.
Well, we're cooperating here.
Learning together.
What is the Four Cornerstones in 3 stages that you all developed?
Yeah, that's a model to help with the development of new food co-ops. The Four Cornerstones are the things that need to be in place for a cooperative business to be successful. So if you're trying to start a new co-op, you need these 4 things in place. You need a vision. What are we going to try to accomplish? What do we see as how are we going to meet members' needs? So vision. You need talent. It's probably very similar to what we were just talking about with integrity and knowledge. You need talent. You need people who can carry out that vision.
Okay.
And then you need capital. You need money. You need resources to put towards that the talented people can put towards achieving that vision. And then finally, the fourth cornerstone is systems, that you need not just to do things in a random way, but to have a systematic approach, systems that work for membership development and so forth. So vision, talent, capital, and systems. And then those are the four cornerstones. And then inside those are the three stages. The organizing stage comes first, where you're getting a group of people together to share the vision, to develop the skills, to understand if they want to form a co-op, and then if so, how are we going to go about doing that, organizing them. The next stage is feasibility and planning, and that is our business idea feasible? Not every good idea is feasible. Mm-hmm. Not every way that we want to meet members' needs is feasible. It has to work as a business. So you have to be sure that you're going to have the market, you're going to have the be able to operate it efficiently and profitably. So we look at feasibility and then planning. So the middle phase is feasibility and planning. If it's feasible, then we develop a plan. And then the final stage is to implement that. So you have organizing, feasibility and planning, and then implementation inside those four cornerstones. So that we created that 10 or 15 years ago, as we were seeing more of these startup efforts that we were talking about earlier, mm-hmm. and feeling like we needed a model or structure to help people think about how are we going to go about this, so you can fit everything into that model.
I love it. Now, we only have a minute left, so what would you like to leave people with?
Oh, this has just been so much fun, Vernon. Thank you so much. I think we need an economy that works for everyone, and cooperatives is an economic system that is fair and just, and we need that in our world. I'm so happy and to be able to talk with you and to share a little bit about the cooperative business model.
Thank you so much for being on. Thank you for what you've done in your 40-year career and what you will continue to do. It's been exciting and fun and learning. And deal with this quote a second. I heard we have about 30 more seconds. Dame Pauline Green said, co-ops help people to come out of poverty with dignity. What do you think about that quote?
Oh, I think it's so important. And Pauline Green was such a great leader. Co-ops help so many people in so many ways, and they're all about the human being and the potential of human beings working together.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Vernon. It was so nice to be with you this morning.
It's a pleasure. Everybody out there, we'll see you next Thursday, and have a real cooperative week and have fun. Thank you.
Washington, D.C.'s News Talk, 1450 AM WOF and 95.